All right, well, good afternoon. My name is Deborah. I work in the education department here at the Akron Zoo. And who is ready to meet some birds? Hopefully everyone who is watching, because that's what we have for you today. Now, I love birds, and I have worked with our ambassador birds here at the Akron Zoo for about 19 years, and I actually have several of my favorite birds for you to meet today. And one thing that's really interesting that they all have in common is they are all birds that you could find right here in Ohio. Some of them maybe even right in your very own backyard. So we're going to get started with our first bird here. And come on out, Beaker. He says slow but sure, making his way to his little feed trough there. So Beaker is a ringneck pheasant, and he is a male. We can tell because of the bright coloration that he has. He has that bright red on his face. He's got that brilliant green and blue on his head, the colorful body feathers. And though he's not showing it off right now, male pheasants have really long tail feathers. However, Beaker is actually in the process of molting. Now, molting is a process that birds go through, depending on where they're native to. Sometimes they do it once a year, twice a year. A lot of times it correlates with their breeding season, and that is the case for pheasants. So it's basically the process of slowly shedding out the old feathers that are maybe not in good condition anymore and growing new feathers in. And of course, if you are a male pheasant, you want to be in your very best feather condition because that is what is going to attract the girls. So pheasants are really interesting in terms of how they attract their mates. The females will often sort of gather in a group, and the male pheasant will come and strut his stuff. And he is just trying to look big and handsome for those girls so that they will decide that he should be the father of their babies. However, sometimes a wrench can be thrown in the works because perhaps another male decides that he wants to try to impress the girls too. And in this case, the male pheasants will fight with one another. They do actually have spurs on their legs, and they will use those as a weapon. And the fights actually can be quite aggressive. However, generally, one of the males does finally give up, and then the victor will take his prize, which is his choosing of all the females who are watching. Now, ringneck pheasants are found here in Ohio. However, they are not native to Ohio. They are not even native to the United States. In fact, ringneck pheasants are native to China. So a lot of people ask, how does a bird that is from China found here in the United States? And they have been here in the United States for quite some time. Well, the reason is apparently pheasants taste good. Don't tell Beaker I said that, and I can't speak from personal experience. But pheasants were brought over here from China for sporting purposes and hunting purposes, and also for meat consumption. So they were actually introduced along the West Coast in the late 1800s. And so in, 150 years, these birds have spread across the entire United States. They are actually even the state bird of South Dakota, which is going to be one of the areas that they are most common to. But they have certainly made their way even here to Ohio, and that really speaks to the adaptability of these birds. The fact that they're in a place that they're not native to, and that they've been able to spread their territory throughout a really, really large range. So these birds are very weather tolerant. They do fine in heat, they do fine in cold. They also are not real picky eaters. They will eat a variety of grasses and grains, but they love insects as well. And so Beaker has been enjoying some yummy mealworms down in his tub here. Now, pheasants can fly, though their flight is not used as much for travel as it is for escape. So when these birds are in the tall grassy fields and perhaps they sense that a coyote is sneaking up on them, they are going to flush into the sky. And these birds can flush about 20 feet straight up into the air. And that very much will startle that predator, and it often gives the pheasant an opportunity to escape. Now, Beaker is 7 years old, and he was actually raised by one of our veterinarians here at the zoo who actually breeds pheasants. Now, pheasants are really interesting birds because when they hatch out of their eggs, they are already feathered and they are already running around, ready to eat the same things that mom is eating. And so it's really important for a bird like this that when we're acquiring them for an ambassador animal, that they are hand-raised and imprinted. And so Beaker has been hand-raised and been around people pretty much from day one. He was actually 7 days old when he arrived here at Akron Zoo. We're going to try to put a little bit more motivation in here for him. Now, I will say that one of the reasons why Beaker's probably pretty excited to just hang out here on the table is, without having programming right now, it is definitely one of the things that we're noticing our animals are missing, particularly our ambassador animals. They are used to going out into schools and churches and libraries and getting to do their thing and getting to meet people and have that excitement in their day. And this is actually one of the first times that Beaker has been out in a number of months in terms of doing a program behavior. And so I think he's just enjoying his little moment in the spotlight here. So I don't know if anyone has any questions out there about Beaker. No questions about the pheasant? And he is really hamming it up for the camera, I gotta say. All right, well, let's see. Come on, Beaky. Can you head back in here for me, bud? Now, I got him out first because I thought he would be the most reliable about going back into his kennel. And of course, animals love to prove their trainers wrong. It is what they do best. That's not even your stump. That's the stump that the next bird is supposed to sit on. You just trying it out for size, being a little Goldilocks here. Come on, Beaky Beaky.
He left a nice present for you, Deborah.
He did. Now, all of you watching will be very glad that this is not smell-o-vision, because that is some really stinky bird poop. All right, we're gonna wait for Beaker to get the rest of those tail feathers in there. And I'm actually, it's really nice to kennel him when he is molting and his tail feathers are short, because normally they are about 2 feet long. And that takes a lot to get into the kennel. Don't worry, they're not shut in the door. There's plenty of room there. Everybody's always concerned about that. All right, so we're gonna set Beaker off to the side here. You'll probably hear him pecking away in his kennel as we continue on. And let's see here, we'll do a really quick little cleanup. You're gonna get to see a behind the scenes look at taking care of animals. This is something that we do every day, all day long. I'll probably make it somewhat worse. Oh, not too bad, there we go. All right. And that's why we have washing machines at the zoo too. Okay, now our next bird that we are going to meet is probably, for any of you who have been to the animal show here at the zoo, he is gonna be a crowd favorite because everyone knows Jinx the Crow. And Jinx is one of my favorite animals here at the zoo. Jinx is 15 years old and he has been here just since he was a little guy. Come on out. How are you doing? We're gonna let him have a few little snacks here. You dropped one, you wanna go down and get it? Because I just kind of want to check things out for a little bit first. Now, one thing that people ask a lot when they see Jinx are, what are those little straps that he has on his legs? Well, those are called jesses, and they're kind of like a leash, though you notice that I'm not holding them right now. But just like you put your dog on a leash when you're taking them for a walk, for your dog's safety and for the safety of others that you might encounter on your walk, if I am going to walk outside with Jinx, or perhaps if something in the show, this happens sometimes, is scary to him and he gets nervous, I can hold those leashes. It actually is sort of like a security thing for him. It means, okay, I know I'm supposed to stay here and she's gonna take me back and put me where I feel safe. But when we're just doing an encounter like this, he's just gonna hang out and do what he wants to do. So crows are one of our backyard birds that people see all the time and often don't really think much about because they're so common. But I say in today's day and age, for an animal to have the luxury of being common actually says a lot about them. It says how adaptable beautiful they are and generally how intelligent they are too. And that is certainly the case with the crow. Now, one of the things that I think is most cool about crows is that they're social. So when you see a crow outside, you may think you just see one crow down on the ground, but I guarantee you there is at least one more crow somewhere around who is looking out for safety. So crows live in a family group, very much like we do. So you have mom and dad crow, you have baby crows that hatch in the late spring, early summer, but their older brothers and sisters are often still with the family group too in order to help raise those babies. And so when mom and dad are out getting food to bring back for the babies, it means that older brothers and sisters are there as babysitters and keeping those little baby crows safe while mom and dad are away. And that is a really great thing to help protect those babies from things like hawks. Now, Jinx has lived here at Akron Zoo for most of his life, and he came to us from a wildlife rehabilitation center. And what happened is, unfortunately, Jinx was found down on the ground as a fledgling, so he was not yet feathered enough to be able to fly. And the person who found Jinx took him to a wildlife rehabilitation center, and thinking that that was the right thing to do. In hindsight, if you do find a baby crow down on the ground, know that its parents will continue to care for it down on the ground to the best of their ability. And that's going to be the best chance that that crow has to stay and be a bird living in the native habitat. But because Jinx was taken to a wildlife rehabilitation center and still needed to be raised until he was fully feathered and ready to go out and be a wild crow, he became what we call imprinted. So he is just so used to being around people. Now, the rehab center actually did try to release him because there was nothing wrong with him. And so they simply said, okay, go ahead, go live out, in the woods here in Ohio. And Jinx simply wouldn't leave. He stayed around the rehab center. He would try to steal food out of their buckets when they were doing care for other animals. And so it was determined that he was truly imprinted and was not going to be able to go back out and live in the wild here in Ohio. But we were quite happy to give him a home here at Akron Zoo. And crows are really smart. Really, really smart birds. Some of their problem-solving skills are amazing. It's thought that they have the memory. I know, you love to interrupt, don't you? That they have the memory, the communication skills of about a 3 to 4-year-old child, which is incredible. So think about that the next time that you see a couple of crows walking around gathering up French fries that somebody threw out from their McDonald's bag. Yes, crows will eat just about anything. It is one of the things that makes them so adaptable, so that they can really live in a variety of habitats. You can find them right in neighborhoods, in cities, in farmland. Really, anywhere can be home for a crow. Now, for those of you that have seen Jinx in the show, you know that Jinx will take dollar bills from our audience members at the end of the show, and he stuffs them into a piggy bank. We donate the money that Jinx takes every year back to a local wildlife rehab center. So Jinx does give back to his roots, and in the 13 years that he's done this in the show at the zoo, he has actually earned over $20,000, $1 at a time. Although every once in a while we get like a 10 or 20. I know, and the 10s and 20s are really exciting, aren't they? But one thing that we do when we take Jinx into a classroom, because obviously we're not going to have little kids give them $1, but Jinx can show them how crows can recycle. We're going to see if Jinx will do that for us. So let's start. Will you come down here for me? Come down here on the ground. You want a snack? Oh, there we go. All right. So come on over here, Jinx. Hey, Jinx. What are you going to do with that piece of paper? He's like, well, first of all, I am just going to explore. Oh, he sees that one little piece of kibble that we dropped earlier, and he's going to grab it. There it is. All right, come here, Jinx. Come here. Come get this paper. And what should we do with paper? We should recycle it, right? Good job. Can you go get that piece? Good job. Bring it up here. Good job, Jinx. It's such a good boy. All right. And get that one, don't you? And put this one up here as well. Really good job. Good job, Jinxie. Now, crows, obviously, out in their native habitat, are not going around and recycling loose paper. However, crows do love to collect things, and they will also cache extra food that they find. I just threw a piece for Jinx. Let's see if he'll come on back here. So if Crow finds a really good food source and it's too much to eat all at one time, they will often hide it in different places so that they can go back to it later. It's kind of the equivalent of taking leftovers home from the restaurant. All right, so do we have any questions about Jinx?
We do. So,
questions about Jinx.
what is the difference between a crow and a raven?
So they do look very similar. However, ravens are in general bigger. Ravens also have a proportionately larger beak, and that beak is more hooked as well. Hey, Jinx, come here, bud. He's like, there's so much to explore down here. All right, well, let's see if we can get Jinx back up here. Now, ravens and crows will occasionally inhabit the same territories, but often you're going to find ravens in the more cold climate habitats. So up in states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, into New England, and crows are going to inhabit the slightly more warmer habitats. Good question. But in terms of their behavior and what they eat and things like that, they are very similar, both really intelligent.
So, why is Jinx being so vocal? Is it because he's worked up?
So Jinx is vocal because of that social nature. Hey, come here, bud. He's like, did the pheasant leave anything behind? He didn't. Come here. Can you come see me? So this is like major fun for Jinx right now. Again, Jinx right now, if this was a normal year here at the zoo, he would have been preparing for the show for the last month and getting out every day and doing his thing and going out to school programs. But like all of us, Jinx has been a little cooped up, so he is super excited to just be exploring right now. But as far as that vocal nature, again, remember they're social, and so they will communicate with one another when they're out in their native habitat. They have different vocalizations to talk about different kinds of food that they're finding, potential predators that might be nearby. And so for Jinx, since he's imprinted, I am a part of that family group for him. And so he is talking to me and letting me know all of the things that he is encountering. You're not going to come up, are you? You are having way too much fun. All right, any other questions about Jinx?
So, do crows only eat dead animals?
Crows will eat just about anything. So they will eat insects, they will eat worms, they will even catch some live animals. Now granted, those have to be small, but they are notorious for taking nestling baby birds, even some small rodents. Yes, they do eat dead animals. That's a pretty easy food source. And even though that can sound gross, it actually does help to keep things nice and clean. Crows have also really adapted to eating things that humans have left behind. So people that throw out their trash and, there's McDonald's French fries in it, or maybe some chicken wing bones in the trash can, crows have learned that those are also very good food sources too. Though maybe not the healthiest if a veterinarian had their say.
How long do crows live?
They are very long-lived and will often in human care live well into their 20s.
How many eggs do they lay at one time?
So they will typically lay between 2 and 5 eggs. And not all the time do they all hatch. If they all do, then it's definitely a really good thing that they've got mom and daddy and older brothers and sisters helping to care for those babies, because 5 babies is a lot. He's like, what's in here? It's the same. So you guys are literally, this is just like watching a toddler explore in a new environment. Jinx is just having a total ball right now. You can see how curious he is. Now, along with that curiosity, he can also be hesitant in new situations, but he definitely wants to know what's going on and figure out what he can get into. That is for sure. And he's like, what's in this bag right here? I'm kind of curious. All right, well, let's see, because we do have one more bird that we want to share with everybody. So we're going to see if we can get Jinx to cooperate. Oh, I can see we have another cleanup on aisle 6 as well. All right, let's see. Jinxie, come here. Come here. You want to see what's in the bowl? He's like, no, this might go down and recycle a little bit. Hey, come here. Jinxie. Oh, apparently I should have gotten all of the birds out last because no one wanted to go home. All right, let's see. Come here, Jinx. I'm just going to keep walking away away from me, aren't you? Come here. What do I have? What do you think, bud? He goes, I'm having the time of my life right now. This is really exciting. And of course, now he's had quite a few snacks that we've been out here, so he's not even super food motivated to come back and see what we got. Come here. Hey, Jinx. You don't want to come up. All right, well, if we can't get Jinx to cooperate, we may have to kind of show our last animal from his kennel, which would be a real shame. Jinx, you're taking Texas spotlight. Here, let's see. Hey, Jinx the Crow. Jinx. What's that? Yeah, is that good? Come here. All right. Oh, for all of you out there who think, I want to work with animals. I want to be like Crocodile Hunter, Coyote Peterson, and work with animals. It is so much fun, but be prepared for them to always test you, just like kids do. I know. All right, well, let's see. I might have to steal a more yummy treat from our last animal to see if I can entice Jinx here. Hey, Jinx, come here. What do I have? Come on. I know. Oh, it is so good, isn't it? So this is one of those cases where I'm going to go ahead and hold that leash on Jinx. And in case you were wondering, well, what did she offer him that was more yummy than what he was being offered before? So before I was offering him little pieces of dog kibble, which is good, but it's kind of like, you know, it's just like eating the main course of your dinner. It's eating your chicken or eating your, you know, potatoes, what have you. What I offered him to finally have him come to me was a piece of mouse, and that's like dessert if you're a crow. All right, so Jinx is back in his kennel, which means we can meet our last animal.
So while we're making the adjustment and getting Tex out, we have a question about Beaker the pheasant.
Yes.
So Laura is concerned that it seems like it would hurt him to hit the bottom of the tray while he's eating. Does he have a tongue, and does he use his tongue to pick up the food?
He does have a tongue, and the bowl that he was eating out of is actually rubber, so it is soft. But that is what pheasants do. I mean, they are pecking on hard ground because when they peck, they are also killing, you know, the insect that they are going to be eating. Their skull is actually very reinforced for that behavior, much the same way that a woodpecker can, you know, peck his brains out on a tree. They're just designed to do that. So no, it does not hurt Beaker at all.
So how come Jinx and Tex couldn't be outside at the same time?
Well, it would be one of those things, maybe they could. They live next door to each other. They are neighbors, so they're very used to being around each other, but they have never actually been in the same space with one another. And I actually don't think they would be aggressive toward one another. I don't think that at all. I think that they would make each other slightly nervous. And I don't want either of them to, you know, do sort of a nervous flight in this room because obviously there are walls and windows. So I wanted to keep the birds nice and calm. All right, come here, bud. All right, we'll get our last animal all situated here. We'll put a few little pieces out here, but I actually made a little toy for Tex to enjoy while he's out here too. So let's see. He's gonna come on out, old man.
So what's
think about it.
What is the banging that we're hearing?
The banging is actually Beaker in his kennel, and he is finding more of the food that was in his kennel. And he has a little rubber mat in his kennel, and he likes to lift it up and drop it back down over and over and over. I think sometimes he's looking for food, and I think sometimes he just likes to do it. All right, so our last bird to meet today is Tex, and Tex is a turkey vulture. Now, turkey vultures, of course, live right here in Ohio. They live throughout much of North America, though in the southern parts and western parts, you might find more black vultures than turkey vultures. And he is going to be demonstrating a very natural vulture behavior, which is using his big turkey-like feet to hold something in place while he tears at it with that beak, because vultures are specialized for feeding on carcasses. So yes, the deer that dies out in the wild, or the groundhog, what have you, vultures are going to find those food items with their incredible sense of smell. So in case you wonder, when you look up in the sky and you see a vulture soaring, and oftentimes you'll actually see more than one vulture, they are social as well. And a group of vultures is called a kettle. And when you see those vultures up in the sky and they're soaring in those circles like a big hang glider up in the sky, and they have a 6-foot wingspan upon which to soar, they are circling because they're trying to pinpoint where on the ground the smell is coming from, the smell of their food. And so that is what they are often doing. And vultures, because they are social, it allows them to get into carcasses that are very large. So for example, a deer carcass, that is a lot of work for a single vulture. But if you have a whole group of vultures working on it, then they are able to get to the actual meat that they're going to eat much sooner. Now, Tex is definitely, he's one of those animals, I joke that if he would just turn up missing one day here at the zoo, that no one should look in my house. And a lot of people find it hard to believe that you can love a vulture, because so many people look at these birds and just think that they're ugly and they're gross because of their lifestyle. But first of all, bald is beautiful. I mean, that bald head, look at him, so handsome. It is actually an adaptation for feeding on carcasses. It does help to keep them clean as opposed to having a fluffy, feathery head. But Tex is so full of personality. Now, he has actually lived at the Akron Zoo longer than any other animal. He is 35 years old, and he has been here at the Akron Zoo for 34 years. The reason why he came to live at the zoo is because he was both orphaned and injured as a baby vulture in the state of Texas. That's why his name is Tex. And he is another imprint as well. Someone found him, kept him for a bit before taking him to a rehab center. And so Tex is an imprint just like Jinx and just like Beaker. And the thing that I love so much about Tex is, I have worked with Tex the whole time I've been here, which is now almost 19 years. And you'd think like, oh my gosh, 19 years, you guys must, just be like best buddies. And in a way we are, but Tex is as ornery today as he was on day one. He's always looking for a little bit of trouble to get into, always seeing if he can kind of get the best of you maybe. He's looking at a little piece that he dropped down here. Will you let me get it? What if I get that for you? How's that? I was faster than you were. See, that's what I mean. That little give me that piece of food. He knows I'm gonna give it to him. He just always has to try and show who is boss. And you are making a huge mess out here. Are you having so much fun? And one of the things too with caring for really an elderly animal, at 35 years old, vultures have been known to live in human care into their 40s. But I mean, Tex is an old guy, and just as humans age, we get into some chronic health issues. Really the only chronic health issue that Tex has is arthritis, and that's a pretty common issue for many of us as we age. So he actually has arthritis in his left wing, which was the wing that was injured when he was a baby. And he also now has, in the last several years, has developed some slight arthritis in his leg as well, his left leg. And so we treat him daily with Cosequin. We really monitor his body posture. His left wing droops because of the arthritis. And if there's a day where I feel like it's more droopy than what I'm used to it seeing, that's when I might give the vets a call and say, hey, can we get a little dose of anti-inflammatory for today? Sometimes you just need a little extra help in that regard. So we really monitor Tex's quality of life, and I have no concerns at this point. This animal really thrives here at the zoo and has for literally his entire life. So he is one of my best buds to come and see every day. And he also, again, would normally be prepping for the show right now. And so he is having so much fun just hanging out here and being the center of attention, which is what Tex loves to be. So any questions about Tex?
Why does he stand with his wings out while he's ripping up the enrichment?
Part of it is for balance. Those wings are going to be for balance. Part of it is for showing Elena, who is running the camera, that he is boss.
And he did hit me.
And he is bigger and badder than she is. That's what that 6-foot wingspan can also be used as a behavioral or territorial display like that too. Did you get everything out? I think you did.
So he looks very strong. Is he as strong as he looks?
He is a very strong bird. So Tex loves, when we're handling Tex, we'll use a big glove like this. And oftentimes we'll have food in the glove too when we're handling him. Just kind of helps to keep him busy when he's on the glove. And I'll show you. So this is a new glove. And we have to get new gloves for Tex generally once a year, because he loves to chew a hole in the thumb right there. And these are actually Kevlar gloves, so these are really tough. They also get really disgusting because Tex is constantly pooping. Now, that is not just because he has like a too high fiber diet. It is actually a means for these birds to do a couple of things. When they produce their urates, which is the equivalent of turkey, vulture, or bird pee, it actually will just run down their legs, and their urates are highly acidic. And so the bacteria that are often going to be present on the legs of a vulture in the native habitat from their feeding lifestyle, those urates actually help to kill those bacteria. So kind of like a little antibiotic in a way. And then also, if it's a hot summer day and you want to cool down a little bit, you just pee down your own legs, let it evaporate, and it is a cooling mechanism for vultures too.
Do turkey vultures eat bones?
Do they eat the bones? So yes, of a smaller animal, I mean, if, he, like when I feed him mice and rats that he is fed here at the zoo, he does consume the bones. Now those are then usually a day later regurgitated up in the form of a pellet. But if they're feeding on a really large carcass, something like a deer, no, they're not going to be able to consume the large leg bones and such like that. But they will chew on the bones to even get to the marrow as well. I don't think there's anything else in there. It's like, I just want to make sure. Just to make sure I got what's due to me.
How can you spot a vulture versus a hawk while they're flying in Ohio?
So, yes, a red-tailed hawk and a vulture, when they are both up soaring in the sky, just take a quick second look. The hawk is going to soar on steady, straight out wings like this. But when a vulture is soaring, their wings are going to be in a slight V, so V for vulture, and they tend to rock a little bit more when they're soaring as well. And if they're up too high, you can't tell size difference, but a turkey vulture is going to have about a 6-foot wingspan compared to a large red-tailed hawk, which is going to be about a 4.5-foot wingspan. So the vulture's wingspan is going to be larger.
Gracie is asking if you could let her know how old Tex is again.
So he is 35 years old, and his birthday is in May, but I don't know off the top of my head what the date is. But yes, so big 35 years old this month. Any other? All right. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining our Lunch and Learn today. And this honestly was, I think, maybe even more fun for me and the birds as it was for you, because the birds got to get out and have some fun. And I love people being able to see these birds when, unfortunately, right now we can't come to the zoo to do that. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next Lunch and Learn.